I'd like to welcome everybody to the Medical Marijuana and Wellness webinar series. Tonight's topic is going to be terpenes. One thing I find to be very important and really the key to having medical cannabis not only work, but work for you. And it's something that's really not known much in the industry. We hear a lot about marijuana, CBD, THC strains, but really the best actor is the person in the background doing all the hard work, and that's the terpenes, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm joined by a gentleman that I've had the pleasure of doing a couple webinars with and some seminars with, and we'll be doing some seminars in the next for the rest of this year. Nick, Dick, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Thank you, Mark. I'm the physician educator out here in Northeast Florida. I'm lucky to work from Jacksonville down to Ocala, Lady Lake area and visit physicians as well as community events. So I'm out there engaging with the community and really talking about terpenes in the field. I'm very lucky to be able to bring that new information to the doctors as well as the any updates that come into effect. So talking with opportunities like this, I've always had a great time. So thank you so much, Mark.
You've worked with a number of, I know you've worked with a number of patients. I know when we did our seminar in the villages, you were helping us out. And I think you've seen a lot of, let's just say, cases where medical marijuana has helped patients. And I think terpenes are the key. I think it's something that, we were chatting a little bit about terpenes in general and how really the aroma is really the bottom line of what you see. You were mentioning the grow facility in Apollo Beach. The neighbors loving the aroma of what's coming out of there. I think a lot of that has to do with terpenes, right?
100%. That's where the smell comes off from. The plant is trying to protect itself by identifying that, hey, that we are here. You can smell me.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's do this. Let's jump into the presentation itself. And so let's talk a little bit about terpenes. Hopefully, and everybody, you can see what the slide itself. Let's talk a little bit. Let's start by some housekeeping things. I want to mention that this is the last webinar, excuse me, in our spring webinar series. We had successfully conducted 12, and I want to thank everybody who's joined us in the past, and hopefully will join us in the future. We're going to return. We're going to start. It says webinars are going to return September 7th. We may be adding one actually starting as early as the 24th of August. And so please stay tuned. We're going to have a pretty exciting webinar schedule next quarter. We're upgrading a lot of things. We're bringing in some doctors, some leading political figures to talk this quarter. So we hopefully will be taking it to the next level to really help you understand how medical cannabis can help you and also how it can actually help you get your life back. And so that's what we're all about. As Nick was mentioning, we're here really to talk about medical cannabis, but more importantly, we're here to really answer your questions. I know that when I got involved in this industry, there were I had a lot of questions about medical cannabis, and I found it very hard to get answers. And that's what we're here for. Please feel free to ask us questions. That's what we're here for. And there's no questions that's dumb. I mean, this is an educational program, so please help us in there. And I do want to mention that tonight's webinar is being live streamed right now on Facebook, and also as a follow-up to this, you'll be getting an email that has a recording of the webinar, so you'll be able to give us a link to a YouTube video, so you can actually see the webinar, the video. You'll get copies of the slides. You'll get any discounts that are talked about by myself, and also Nick will document that for you, speaker information, and then also some information on the resources we use to put this together. So please feel free to, the idea of the follow-up is you don't have to take copious notes. You'll be getting those, and probably by the end of this week, I would hope. Again, we're just, God willing, and the internet stays up, we'll be able to do that. I do want to point out that there is a Q&A button that's right about in here. And that Q&A button is where you can put questions in, and please feel free to ask questions. Again, that's what we're here for. There is a chat button that's more like over here that feel free to ask questions through the chat, but we're going to mainly pay attention to the Q&A button. And I think you want to make sure your questions are going to be noted and answered. Please do that. And again, thank you very much for joining us. So Nick, now that we got the housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about terpenes. I know people have used this slide in the past, but I just love it because really cannabis is a whole medicine cabinet. I know that it's really the key to unlock, and routes of administration as well as terpenes are the keys to unlocking that medicine cabinet. We're going to talk about both of those today. Why do I say medicine cabinet? Because we know that there's 450 plus medical properties that are involved in cannabis one way, shape, and form. You see a little person over here with all these different medical conditions. This is a graphic taken from a group called Normel, and there's a document that's out there that actually documents each one of those studies that have been done on each one of those particular conditions. And this is just a subset of what we know medical cannabis can do. There's over 120 cannabinoids that are being actually studied right now. There are over 200 of them that we know about. There's over 100 terpenes that are being studied, and yet we know there's over 200 of those. And that's a lot in one particular plant. When we say cannabinoids, you hear about THC, you've heard about CBD, you've heard about CBC. Really, those are the components that make up the plant itself. And what's interesting is when these cannabinoids work together, they create what they call an entourage effect. That entourage effect means 1 and 1 is more than 2, it's more like 3. So for example, in pain management, CBD has pain management properties to help with pain management. THC does as well, but when you put them together, they really synergistically work together to provide some additional health benefits that really help, for example, with pain management and other things. So the thing that makes the cannabis unique is that entourage effect. And that's one of the reasons why Western medicine has a lot of difficulties understanding cannabis, because it's 1 and 1 is 3. They like to study one drug with one route of administration for one problem. And what's interesting is because this is something that your body uses to be able to heal itself, what's interesting is that it's more than one, in many cases, cannabinoids that work together. And that's called the entourage effect. So it's not a slam against Western medicine. It's just, this is one of the reasons why people have studied, or doctors have difficulty trying to understand cannabis itself and how it works. Nick, terpenes, what are they? You were mentioning earlier, this is really what the plant uses to protect itself, whether it's from fungus, insects, pests, grazing animals. This is how the plant itself keeps itself basically alive and from other predators being able to hurt it. And what part of that is bringing up the aroma and the flavor, isn't that right?
Absolutely. It's as a species of a plant, it's engaged us by smell. And we've actually been able to identify which are going to be able to respond better based on best breeding qualities. So as we do see the natural propagation of terpenes here, we're able to find the linalool, the pinene, the ginger, the caryophyllene, the different types of terpenes that are found available. And that aroma is based on those terpenes that are growing through the species.
Right. I mean, it's one of the things is there's this whole discussion of how does cannabis work, and I'm not going to get medically technical, but there's something called the blood-brain barrier. This is how medicine is being able to get into not only our bloodstream but also our brains and the rest of our body and provide medical benefits. Terpenes really help to make that happen. They're the ones that really are the emphasis or the how should I say the push behind that. There's some common terpenes that are out there. Tell me a little bit about linalool and limonene and those types of things.
Absolutely. Linalool is a wonderful anti-anxiety, antidepressant. Think lavender, think birchwood, cinnamon, mint, rosewood, sweet basil. This is something that's really going to be able to stack into the system in that entourage effect we were talking about, where you're going to have that antidepressant opportunity and that sleep basis. When it comes to limonene,
that's why I put the lavender field behind me, because what's fascinating is that linalool is much like lavender. It really helps people relax, and it's much like essential oils, right?
Mm-hmm. It all lends back to that classic aromatherapy thought, and I'm sure it's sweet dreams in that field that you have behind you.
Mm-hmm. I watched a webinar last night, and I found out that the potential of like limonene and myrcene are really critical to basically the medical properties that we find in cannabis.
Mm-hmm. The different terpenes and cannabinoids, as we consume them, activate different CB1 and CB2 receptors. So as we reach that point of natural homeostasis, the different parts in our body that do need to be addressed by cannabis here, which luckily are stimulated by our endocannabinoid system. When we use different terpenes, we have different parts of our body that are affected. And then when we look at caryophyllene, that's actually the only terpene that has the availability to activate the CB2 receptors. So we have to have some balance in there. Right.
And what we're talking about, a lot of these help with inflammation and pain management. It is interesting that they've been finding that a lot of these things are really essential for us. When I was learning about cannabis, I still am always learning about cannabis, but it was explained to me that cannabis works like a concert. Like when you go to a concert or you go to a symphony, what you have is you have different people playing different instruments. And really, so CBD and THC may be the conductors. They're the ones that are really guiding things to that particular spore. But it's really the minor cannabinoids and the terpenes that really bring in the sauce, the flavor, the really that really cool part of the product, the plant that really makes it work. And really, as we mentioned earlier, terpenes make the CBD and CB2 receptors work together. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I really like your analogy there, Mark. It's the light show. Obviously, you've got the music behind you where you feel the THC. But if you want to have that true effect of being there with everybody with that full concert experience, you need the lights. That's where the terpenes come in.
Yeah. And really, when they talk about full spectrum, we're talking about cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, all present. All when they're playing in harmony, they do some wonderful things. I've been giving these either seminars or webinars now for almost 5 years, about 4.5 years, and I hear constantly from people who say, "I got my life back. Thank you very much. This has really helped." And if tonight's webinar just helps one person get their life back, then we've accomplished exactly what we wanted to accomplish. But it's really all those working together that really help. And a lot of people don't know about this or how to use it. And it really makes a big difference in a lot of people's lives. I know it has in mine. What's interesting about terpenes in general, let's just talk about, and they're found throughout nature. They're not just in the cannabis plant. We have them in a lot of plants, and really terpenes are in almost every plant that's out there, again, to protect itself and to be able to help itself grow. But the terpenes really bring out the strain's aroma and taste. You talk a little bit about that, because you were mentioning your grow facility in Apollo Beach, and the neighbors loving the smell of it, right?
Absolutely. When it comes down to it, that wonderful grapefruit smell when you put your nose into a jar of a purple punch or slurricane or maybe a clementine, just that wonderful citrus buds that we have. That's the limonene screaming out at you. When you have that, you can feel that singe there. But now when you're in the grow house, that's amplified by the 400 plants that are in front of you. And one of the nicest parts about that is that when it's fresh on the plant there, obviously wearing gloves, you can feel the terpenes coming off the buds, and they actually stick to your fingers to the point where it's almost like perfume. And it's so tacky and so prevalent in the trichome heads that it just naturally adheres to whatever touches it. So those terpenes they're that protective. They're really trying to keep that bud from being eaten by a predator. Meanwhile, they're producing something wonderful for us.
Sure. Now, terpenes themselves are the hydrocarbons. They're the actual part that you see on the plant itself. There's something called terpenoids. You'll hear that term coming up. And that's really when they take that plant and they dry it out, and that's what you're seeing there. Now, I have this little, let me look back here. I have this little picture here. And I always get a kick out of people ask me, why does cannabis show all these funky pictures of all these funky little buds? That's because we're really trying to show the trichomes, because it's really the trichomes here that are really the reason that it's a lot of the product that you produce. That's what we're really looking for. And this is where the trichomes are really where a lot of you mentioned the terpenes as well as the cannabinoids are actually stored in those little tips over here. And they can be a bit sticky, right?
Oh, incredibly sticky. Yeah, those are resinous bulbous heads that it's like a cellophane that's around it. And inside it's almost a liquid that for our concentrates, we actually extract that THC right there and the terpenes from those trichome heads. And we make sure that's only the part of the extract that you're getting.
Right. So that's why people show this, because they all have different profiles. And so they have different looks that are out there. Now, let's talk about the pros and cons of cannabis-derived terpenes. So cannabis produce terpenes. We know that there are over 200 of them that have been found in the plant. And by the way, we can send a chart to anybody who wants to take a look at all the terpenes that are out there, if they're interested. There are different terpenes and different terpene concentrations in the different strains that are known that are out there. So that's why it's important to take a look at the profiles. We'll go over those later on in the presentation. We'll show the different terpene profiles for the different products that Move has, for example. But really, these are really there to enhance what they call the entourage effect, to really have the different cannabinoids and terpenoids and flavonoids all work together to provide that medical relief that's there. That's the pros that we find from terpenes. The cons are that terpenes that are made from cannabis are highly volatile, which makes it very difficult to extract and basically hard to manage. This is where a professional grow facility like Move does a great job. You guys do a phenomenal job of being able to put the terpenes back into the product, keep and maintain them in there, bring it back into the product. A lot of folks who say, well, I'm going to grow my own, and we talk about homegrown and things like that. I think that's great. And to be blunt, cannabis in general, even in reduced efficacy, is very beneficial to help a lot of people. But when you get a professional behind it that can keep the terpenes in the plant itself, that really is it's a home run. That's the icing on the cake, and that's really what we're looking for. And that's what's happening with terpenes themselves. Also, you have to worry about when you try to buy the terpene isolates, where they actually put that together. They're fine to find the quality, and really the expense is really the key to it. And that's what makes really what you're doing. I think I applaud what you're doing at Move. It really makes it something that's really, really magic. You have some comments on that, Nick?
Absolutely. The cannabis terpenes are literally going from the plant into the product of which they're being served in there. So there's no other, there's no mix that's going on for any sort of botanical or maybe some other blended cannabis terps. Because when we say it's a strain specific product, that means what came out of the ground is in the bottle.
Right.
So it makes a difference.
Yeah, and I think also what I like about what you're doing is the key has been you've been able to keep the profile. In other words, what's going on from batch to batch. You've kept it very consistent. And again, that's some of the magic about what you guys do. And
that's the indoor growing and being able to have that repeatable process, because like we said, everything that's grown at Move is cultivated indoors. So we have that process down, which creates that repeatable.
Right. Now there are botanicals that produce terpenes. And just to give you an idea, there are over 20,000 known botanical terpenes that are out there. We've heard of a whole raft of things. You've heard of the linalool, the essential oils and things like that. Those are all derived from terpenes that we see that are out there. There's a lot of them. The extraction can be fairly cost effective, but I think what's really key is that botanicals really work well when they are mixed with other things. And I'm not talking necessarily about cannabis. I know that there's a lot of essential oil companies. I know there's a lot of folks that do holistic medicine, and a lot of what they're putting together, they're mixing together, are really those botanical terpenes to really be able to help people provide the relief that's out there. So don't have the perception that cannabis is by itself in producing terpenes. There are a lot of very effective and a lot of positive terpenes that are out there. Again, the problem, I have found that I've been doing a study recently of a lot of terpenes, and I've only found really 4 firms that really know what they're doing and have a product quality that I would buy. It's just being able to find the high quality terpenes at a reasonable price is something that's really difficult. And also, there's a limited number of practitioners who know what to do with it. I know there's a lot of people talk about terpenes, but I know just a handful of practitioners that I would trust to be able to add terpenes to your cannabis, or add terpenes to your lifestyle that can help you quite a bit. Have you seen a little bit of that, Nick?
Blending it the right way really is key, and because it is such a concentrated opportunity when you do receive it, that it's easy to go too far, and it's also easy to put too little in there, especially if you're doing it at the wrong temperature. You can degrade the terpenes before you consume them. So right. There's a formula that you have to follow there, and if you have a recipe that you've vetted and you have a vendor that you've vetted that you trust, that's a different story. But I would be wary just getting something off the shelf and hoping for the best.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things you have to be careful about. People who say I have terpenes for sale. It's kind of like buying Delta 8. You know, you got to check the COAs, check to make sure the quality is there, check to make sure they have a reputation, they've been in business for a while, and who uses them, because those terpenes are. It's not that there's a bad terpene, but when you get a high quality terpene, it makes a big difference. You know, there's a difference between the bar version of whiskey and getting your favorite whiskey that's out there. I'm a whiskey drinker, by the way. So give me some good George Dickel or some Buffalo Trace, and I'm a happy boy, that type of thing. And I think that's what we're talking about, is that kind of a difference that's out there.
But if you tasted a bathtub batch, you'd know the difference.
Oh yeah, definitely. So because there are a lot of terpenes, and I'm not trying to just limit the number, but this is a chart that I put up here just to give you an idea of at least the top terpenes that people take a look at, and talks about the aroma that people get. You get flower, you get a citrus leaf flower, you get an earthy, you get a floral, you get a spicy kind of flower that's there. Herbal, for example, is something that's there, and these are the different properties, medical properties that you see that are out there, and also here's the other places that they're found. So it's interesting that, again, the terpenes aren't exclusive to the cannabis market, but we're learning more and more about terpenes that are really out there. So I just wanted to provide this for everybody to take a look at. Again, there are over 200 of them that are known. There's 120 of them being studied. And really, I think the future of cannabis is going to be terpenes and the blending of those terpenes and being able to make sure that you can keep the terpene concentrations in the products that are going out the door. I think that's what you're calling cultivars, right? What is the fingerprint between the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and what their intended use is. In other words, are they intended for pain, inflammation, whatever? That's what we call a cultivar. It has a fingerprint, and terpenes are the key to understanding the fingerprint of all those products. There. Nick, let's talk about the entourage effect. We kind of jumped over that a couple times. Really, this is where all the combination of things really work together. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, here's the concerto of that symphony you were talking about earlier. As everything's working in harmony, and we have the THCA, the THCV, the CBD, the CBN, along with the terpenes, working with the flavonoids, those other types of flavors, all creating that point of homeostasis that we're looking for. So the entourage effect is our body at its calmest point. We've now consumed the right blend of terpenes and products to be able to have our system be stimulated. And then that should be able to lead into the next day, which is the beautiful part of the entourage effect, because when you go to sleep, it continues as you wake up and you start your regimen again.
Right. And examples are if you're dosing, you're trying to figure out what your tolerance is for THC, for example, in CBD. If you take a little bit too much THC, you can add some CBD, equal amount of CBD, and it'll take you back down to where you were before. It helps you offset any of the negative effects you might get if you take too much THC. Again, no one has ever died from using cannabis, either medically or recreationally. You're not going to die, although you may get pretty anxious. You may get a feeling of euphoria that you're not used to, but it's something that you're not going to die. You'll be fine. And again, CBD helps you bring it back to what I call the norm, and that's an example of the entourage effect. These things working together, and again, terpenes enhance cannabis. And there's a lot of discussion about CBN. CBN is something that helps people sleep. And what's interesting is if you put it with THC and CBD, it brings out the enhanced effect of that. Now I'm going to take a question from Connie, which I think is great. And Connie, welcome. It says, I'm just waiting for my license. How do I know what terpenes to get? Do you take the terpenes at the same time you use the flower in the vape? Thanks. You want to answer that one, Nick, or you want me to take it?
Absolutely. So if you've just started and by the time you do get your flower and your vape there, that is how you're going to get the terpenes for that moment there. The different types of products are going to have different levels of terpenes available in there. Flower sometimes has anywhere from 0.5% to 4% terpenes. Usually it's between 1 and 3. But when it comes to the vape, we see anywhere between 6% to 12% terpenes, depending on the type of extract. The best way to do it is to start slow and really get a baseline for how you experience the terpenes in each different product there. So that flower might be a little bit more subtle as opposed to the vape, which is going to be a little bit more immediate. So definitely get ready, because you're going to feel it.
Right. I think this will help answer your question right here. The actual product itself, whatever route of administration, classically will have some sort of terpenes in it. There are some isolates that don't have any terpenes in them, but most of the time you'll find, especially in the concentrates, your vape pens, your edibles, especially your tinctures, you'll find that there are terpenes in there. Your question might be, what terpenes and how do I know what terpenes are there? We're going to talk about what terpenes are good for what different conditions. We'll do that in just a moment. But this is an example of a certificate of analysis that you can actually get from Move, and this is the flower product, right? Nick, you want to take us through this?
Absolutely. The COA, or Certificate of Authenticity, is your ticket to understanding what is in your cannabis. And luckily, because we're in the medical program, every single product that's on our shelves needs to have a certificate of authenticity. This is what gives us the official measure to say, hey, this is a safe product that we know has been tested for any sort of pathogens or heavy metals. And we know that it's going to be medically effective for you because we can see how many terpenes are available within the product. So when we look at the bottom there, we've got the wheel, and then we've got the chart with the lines with the bars on it there. And this identifies the different types of terpenes that are being tested for, but most importantly, what are most prevalent in that strain that you've picked up. So limonene and caryophyllene are the top two here. So we're going to see that this is a anti-anxiety as well as antidepressant type strain. So somebody that's trying to work on something that you know, you want to be a little bit more social, want to be a little less locked down mentally, this is something that I would reach for. So a strain like Velvet Glove or something like Clementine, definitely be something that would have these types of terpenes.
Right. Right. And again, these are available from Move. Actually, on the side of the package itself, it has a QR code. You can actually use your mobile phone, your smartphone, put it up there, and it'll pop up these reports. Or you can ask the bud tenders. The bud tenders will help you find them and be able to pull those up for you. So they are there. And in fact, Move has done a really great job of providing a table for that. We'll show that to you in just a moment. But this is, again, the picture of the flower itself. I just don't want to overlook the fact that all these little white things that you're seeing in here, these are where all the terpenes are coming from. And this is kind of a cool little plant, but this is what we're really, really looking for here. Now, had a great question from an anonymous attendee that says, I'd like to better understand the effects of the terpenes to improve my ability to more intelligently select flower. And there's a whole bunch of questions in that. So let's actually answer that question by talking about the products you have. And more importantly, I think here is a good slide you all put together. This is the terpene table that you have from Move. We're going to talk about the different terpenes, but the potential effects, what aroma you're going to smell, what strains they're found in, and also outside of cannabis where they're found. So Nick, tell us about a couple, caryophyllene and humulene.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And I think that this is a really valuable tool. This is this chart is actually also something that's out in the real world. It's on a piece of paper that you can find in your doctor's offices. We keep those stocked there because this really is the key to understanding your terpene profile.
And Nick, we'll include that in the follow-up material.
For sure. And the beautiful part about this is that we can look at a list of potential effects there. And I know that I'm somebody that works on anxiety, and I know I'm somebody that does need sedative because I have problems falling asleep. So caryophyllene is something that works very, very well for me. Right. Humulene is more on the antibacterial, anti-suppressant, antifungal, anti-inflammation. Not something that I normally struggle with, but it's a great terpene for somebody else. Now, however, when we have these different blends here, I can say, hey, I'm looking for something with more caryophyllene, and now I'm going to get a strain that's going to be best suited to me. Now, if I wanted something that was going to be appetite suppressant, I would reach for humulene, which is one of the beautiful parts about that.
Wait a minute, you said appetite suppressant. I love it. So supposedly people, when they're using cannabis, they get the munchies and hit the couch, right? And you're talking about appetite suppressant.
Yep, and it's quite the conundrum, but believe it or not, humulene is it. And think about when you smell a wonderful fresh beer, that hops flavor, that wonderful effervescence that washes over the palate. That's the same experience you get from humulene. Sure. So that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. It goes on further with other terpenes as well.
Well, here's myrcene and limonene. And
Absolutely.
Again, going back to the anonymous question, these are the different potential effects. So you can actually say, what do I want that effect to be? And you can actually match that against a terpene profile. And then you can then go back and figure out what strains and a route of administration you may want to use for that, right?
And if I'm looking for something with anti-anxiety to improve my mood function there, and I know that limonene is something that's going to do that, if I communicate that to the med tender saying, hey, I need something with limonene and myrcene in it, now I'm going to have that best opportunity to get the right medication as opposed to what do you have on sale? Sure. Because you have that conversation, you have that communication, you can understand your terpene profile, and then that's going to be something that makes it a lot easier for the next purchase.
Yeah, and I saw again, in the presentation I saw last night, a doctor was presenting a study that was done where they actually used lemonade. They were studying limonene as a terpene. They had 5 patients. 2 of them were given placebos, 2 of them were given high concentrations of limonene. 1 of them was given a medium, a middle ground concentration of terpene, limonene. And actually what they were going after is seeing its effect on cancer. And what's fascinating is in the 3 patients that had the high concentration or medium concentration of limonene, they actually helped put cancer into remission. The other 2 went kind of the other way. And so they ended up stopping this trial and bringing those people over to the other side, which was very, very interesting. So limonene as a terpene is getting a lot of attention, especially in Europe, where they're studying, Europe, I should say, in Canada, because this study was coming out of Montreal. And so it's interesting to see that that it has a lot of medical properties that'll be published in the next year or 2 to really help with a lot of different conditions.
That's a powerful story. I love that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And then also you have pinene and linalool. I know that, again, both of them very, 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 very important.
And these are the stepping stones here. So these are the most prevalent terpenes that are in there. Like we said, there's over 200 that are out there in the world, 100 being studied right now. So we're still discovering more as we go along. One of my favorites that's recently kind of come into the light is terpinolene. Works wonderful for anti-anxiety, antioxidant, and sedative properties. So this is all just opportunities for growth. And I mean, when we find these different flavors, it just makes that exploration that much more fun.
Pinene has been really good to help people boost not only their, the bronchial inhaler, but also it helps with memory quite a bit. That's the good news. Bad news is if you have a PTS condition, be careful about your use of pinene, because it does bring back a lot of memories, which you may or may not want. And linalool is something, lavender is something that my wife uses as an essential oil all the time around the house, which is just really great. And you have quite a bit of products that have that in there. I got in the chat, Deborah brought up something I think that's really important. Deborah mentioned that one of the things, the gentleman that was looking for help, she said you might seek out a cannabis health coach, and I agree. There's more and more cannabis health coaches coming into play. If you need a list of some of those, let me know. I've been in touch with a number of them. I worked with a university to put some of those out, so I'll be more than happy to refer some people to them that can help. But I think one of the best cannabis health coaches that I know is called Move. You have a consulting practice, is that right?
Absolutely. So we have the online. Nice to meet you, Ms. Cannabis Coach. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much.
You might want to join with your patients as you talk to them is one of the online consultations. We have an opportunity to actually talk about the terpenes that are going to be available on the inside before you get there. Obviously, you're available to call them by phone, but the easiest way to do it is face-to-face with the video consultations. So that would be an easy way to do it through the website.
Sure. And Deborah, look, I like to promote the cannabis health coaches. I am one, for example. And what I like to do is, if it's okay, Deborah, give us your email address, and we'll post it in the chat and send it out to folks if they're looking at somebody if you're open to having people help you. And if you're not, we understand that too. I'm not trying to push you into that, but I'm always open to promote that business, because it's an important part of the industry that's out there. You mentioned something, Deborah, that's really important. It says, how do I pick the flower at Move? I don't know the terpenes until you get inside. Nick, show them the little table that you had. You just put up that table of right here. Yeah, that guy. Yeah. There's a. Go ahead. Explain that one.
This is from this is the different strains that contain these terpenes here. So best to do it on a per visit basis and actually have the conversation and see what COAs they have available to show you.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's available on your website, right?
Yes, you can do that via the consultation, via the video, or you can call.
Okay, but I'm saying that the chart that you published, that's on your website, is that right?
I don't know exactly where it is, but it would be something that we could email.
I don't know where it is either. We'll try to find it, but I'll tell you what we're going to do is not have you search for it. We'll actually get a copy of that, put it in the follow-up notes, so you can actually have it. So you, Deborah, you can actually see those terpenes prior to going in, which I think is great. Other dispensaries are beginning to post those as well, but I think the one that I know for sure and taking the lead on that is Move. So my compliments to you, Nick, for what you all are doing. I think knowing the terpenes that are there and how they can help are something that's really important. Now, terpinolene is really a good one to take a look at as well.
This one is excellent. One of my absolute favorites here, and this almost has a candy flavor to it sometimes too. So it's that floral lilac lemon, and it is a wonderful sedative. Most recently found it in the Robots strain. So the Guru also has it too, and the pink lemonade is another one that I would reach for this terpinolene.
Guru is one of my favorites, by the way. Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do is because of the terpinolene that's in there.
You have to get it in the new hydrocarbon extract, because the new hydrocarbon extract gives the terpinolene a chance to really express itself as opposed to the ethanol. And with these cartridges here, the flavor is just exceptional. Great.
Deborah did post her email address. Again, we'll put it in the follow-up material. And thank you very much, Deborah. And whatever we can do to help you, please let us know. You can reach me at Lee. If you could put in the chat my email address, the event at marijuanaaware.com. Please feel free to send me a profile of what you do. I'd like to learn more about you. Thank you very much. Nick, we have terpenes are found in all the different routes of administration. Is that correct?
Absolutely. There's going to be some level in each way. Some are going to have more, of course, like our concentrates are going to be a much more prevalent terpene experience than our topicals,
Right.
because obviously that's a skin cream versus a inhaled product. But there is going to be some level in all of them, except for the inhaler. That is a completely discreet, smell-free, no terpenes in there.
Mhm.
THC.
Right. Well, inhalation. So tell me about the different forms of routes of administration. Tell me about inhalation. I know that this is where you get to the flower, the inhalers, the vape pens, the concentrates. Excuse me. They work almost immediately when you take them within a minute or two, and they have a
Absolutely.
duration of between 4 to 6 hours. The reason I break these down is because it has to do with each of these routes of administration has to do with the way the body absorbs cannabis using that route of administration. So they all kind of fall into that category of immediately working and the duration. Tell me about the famous one, orals, which is not only capsules but edibles.
Absolutely, and this is so important to really achieving the optimized entourage effect, because as you stack different products, you're able to start with the inhalation for an immediate relief. You're able to put that oral consumption into play, which is going to kick in between 30 minutes and 2 hours. And
Mhm.
while your vaporizer dose declines, your oral dose kicks in. And then you have that 4 to 10 hour duration there, and that's either capsules or edibles. We have sublingual products too, which are very similar. They last a little bit shorter, but they kick on a little bit faster. So it's all about picking what's going to be best for your next step of the entourage effect.
Yeah, everybody has to be very careful about edibles. About the time you think they're not working and plan to take another one is when they start working. Is that right?
A classic mistake, and yes.
Yeah, it's out there. Most people start by using sublingual drops. They take a little drop and put it underneath their tongue. That's probably the way most people have started, and I recommend it as the way to start dosing. Best way of dosing. That takes but anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes to work. I know in my case it takes about 20 to 25 minutes to work, but will really last about 4 to 6 hours, right?
Absolutely, and being able to have the exact precise measure in your tincture dropper really lets you take ownership over your titration. So you know
Mhm.
what quarter, a half, and a full dropper does to you, and that
Right.
way you can really find your best dose.
Right, right. It's out there, and I can tell you that I have 7 herniated discs in my neck, which is no picnic, and that is called pain. But I've been able to control the pain by being able to use medical cannabis, and I use a regime where in the morning when I wake up, I take on my nightstand I have sublingual drops, and I take some of that, but also I grab a vape pen and take a hit out of that immediately because for the 20 or 30 minutes while it's working, I don't want to live in a level of pain of 7 or an 8, and it immediately drops that literally immediately drops that down to a pain level of 1. So you can mix and match these routes of administration, and again, is what's best for you. This gives you the coverage I need, immediately help me get the pain level down, but more importantly, by using the sublingual drops, it helps me throughout the day to be able to manage that. And in my particular case, because it's a condition that's ongoing, I have a morning, afternoon, evening, and even a nighttime regimen to really to manage the pain that's there. And it works. It really helps quite a bit.
When it comes to managing that pain there, I think having that baseline is also very valuable because you have either the sublingual or maybe a topical application. That way, when you do go for the vaporizer, you need less of it as opposed to having to sit there and then take 3 or 4 hits. You're good with 1 or 2.
Sure. And so tell me a little bit about topicals. I know you guys make great topicals. I love your transdermal patches, but topicals really go on the skin, much like lotions, right?
Yeah, this topical is special because it goes through the skin, past the blood-brain barrier. We actually have encapsulated technology, which I'll talk about a little bit later on in our product here. So really, this is creating a psychoactive effect while providing systemic relief. And then even our transdermal patch lasts over 72 hours. So it's a 3-day dose that's 0.25 milligrams each hour over
Right.
that days there. So and you can stack those. So that's just kind of working in the background, like I said, creating that baseline.
Sure. There's a couple of questions that I want to address here. I'm going to start by knocking off a pretty easy one, if you don't mind. It says, Reshma, and I hope I didn't pronounce it incorrectly. Excuse me if I did. I have trouble inhaling because my throat hurts, but I want immediate effect. Is there a better is it better to inhale? Does that catch in my throat? I think, first of all, bronchial inhalers have been used outside of cannabis for a long time. And it's not something that hurts the lungs or hurts the throat. It's something you might want to take a look at. And I think one of the better products made in the industry is the bronchial inhaler, the inhaler that you have in your product line, right, Nick?
Absolutely. Yeah, the inhaler is immediate. Another very quick one is our sublingual oral spray, because it's such a light misting of material. It does really penetrate that mucus layer there very quickly. So within 2 to 5 minutes there, you really are feeling that effect. And it's a microdose product. So you're able to have that 1.4 milligrams per spray. And then you can decide whether you want to go past that 5 milligram threshold.
Yeah. So there is an inhaler, is what I'm trying to point out. You do have a spray, which is kind of amped down a little bit from the spray. But also, if you have trouble, again, with your throat, stay away from the vape pens. You have your sublingual drops. You have your edibles. And edibles by themselves are a whole discussion, because whether that's the gummies, whether it's chocolates or whatever, they're very, very effective. I know I'm a chocoholic. So guess what I have just before I go to bed every night? A little bit of chocolate, which helps me quite a bit. But it's something, though there are alternate forms of what I'm trying to point out, and it might help as well. But don't back away from the inhaler from Move. I've heard some very good things from people who had throat as well as lung problems that are out there. One of the other questions that's come up here is an anonymous question. How do I determine my terpene profile for what may seem like contradictory symptoms? For example, something like anti-anxiety, that it will allow me to focus, won't make me drowsy, won't make me hungry, and won't cause heart palpitations. I find this very interesting because a lot of this is not just terpene profile, but it has to do with dosing. Is that right, Nick?
Absolutely. And how much of that terpene that you consume in that sudden moment there really does make the difference on the heart palpitations, because with that first part of the list there immediately pointed me towards limonene. But then when we remember that there's anxiety in the background there, that heart palpitations are a real thing, that can sometimes happen with limonene because it is a very effervescent terpene. So that's when I would reach for something like terpinolene, or more importantly, I would be cautious with how I explored. It would be very specific purchases saying, hey, these, and having that conversation with the med tender to know what you're getting on the way in. That way you can log it on the way out. We have an application called Strain Print, which allows you to log every single session that you have to understand the effects that happened afterwards. It actually gives you a reminder 15 minutes afterwards to say, hey, how do you feel now? So it's that moment before when you go to take the medication, and then 15 minutes later after you've consumed it, we check in to see how you're feeling there. So definitely check out Strain Print as a way to kind of help log where you are in your cannabis journey.
And I do think that, let's talk about heart palpitations for a second. We talk about going low and going slow. One of the things that happens is that as you're using medical cannabis, it's important to find out how much THC that you can tolerate and how much CBD that you can tolerate. And then typically, if you know how much THC you can tolerate, you can actually amp up the amount of CBD. That's where we get into the ratio products. Go low and go slow, because the way to get around a lot of the heart palpitations is just not to get there. Is the best way of putting it. I know every person's body is different. I know whether it's alcohol or caffeine, we all have different tolerances that are out there. I sure wish when I was in college first learning how to drink, that I don't understood the concept of go low and go slow. But unfortunately, I had to learn through the cool hard knocks. But I'm saying that this is something that in cannabis, you really want to take a look at, because I think the best way to avoid the palpitations is, first of all, go low and go slow, find out where your tolerance is, and then back down a little bit, maybe increase the amount of CBD, but also pay attention to going with what I call milder strains. And there are folks that you can see how much the concentration of THC versus CBD are in the product. Back down on the THC, use more of a 1-to-1 product, 1 THC to 1 CBD product. Maybe use a 4-to-1, 4 CBD to 1 THC. Now, the nice part about Move products is you provide CBD, THC, you also have a 1-to-1 product. But the nice thing I like about your product is you can become your own bud tender. You can actually mix, let's say, 2 drops of CBD with 1 drop of THC to be able to provide the formula and be able to test that. And that might be able to help as well. And you don't have to go back and buy more bottles, buy more products, do things like that. I really like the fact that the Move does that. And that might help quite a bit. One of the questions that was asked is, what is your topical cream combined with?
I don't have an exact answer on what it's combined with at the moment there. I believe it's a menthol base, just based on the smell there. But it's a very soothing cream. It's cooling, and it does go into the skin quite easily. I don't have a lot of excess cream after I put it on there. It does work wonders getting into the actual site, because when I localize it, whenever I have that elbow bump or something, it really does save the day.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll find out what exactly is combined with, and we'll answer that question in the follow-up material that's out there. If you can get us that answer, Nick, that would be great. That would help quite a bit. I do know that you do have one for pain relief, which has a menthol combination, some menthol in there. I use your lotion. It's a what I think you call it, a soothing lotion.
The evolved gel. And there's
Oh,
the topical, which is menthol.
not the one with menthol, the other one. The name escapes me for a second. It's just your soothing cream. But anyway, I use that. I use it on my face as an aftershave. Believe it or not, I spent too many years. I played golf for over 50 years and walked golf courses most of the time. And the son and I became good friends. It left me about. You see me about 5 or 6 years ago, even 10 years ago. I looked like a spotted owl. You know, and I've been using your product for a couple of years now, and it's actually got rid of. I only have 2 more spots left to get rid of, so it's helped quite a bit. And I was really surprised. Now, it's not something that happened overnight, but it is something that definitely helps. That helps with that. One of the other questions is, there was a question: Are we going to discuss topicals for acne, emphysema, psoriasis, and emphysema? We're really not going to head in that direction. Here's what I would suggest you do to get that question answered: set up a consultation with Move. That's the best way to do that, because I know that some of the properties of some of your topicals address some of those. I'm just not an expert on those, Nick, and I don't know. Do you have an idea of that?
That I would talk to the doctor about there, just because it could be different for your skin as opposed to somebody else's. So that what I would relay back to your doctor.
Yeah. Now, I had an anonymous question that said, I wanted to try the inhaler, but I was told by at least 2 bud tenders that they do not erect it, as I am a lightweight when it comes to THC, and that it only uses and that it is only used to treat seizures. Can you say more about that? I think the bud tender might not be handing out the right information. I know the inhaler is used for a lot of different reasons besides seizures. Is that correct, Nick?
Absolutely, yeah. It's THC that's available to get into the system. So whether it's anxiety or a seizure, it's definitely available to use there. There's definitely a different bioavailability created by the albuterol, the nature of the actual device, so that might be better for a seizure, but it's still just THC. So.
Right. Yeah, and if you are very sensitive to THC, that's what they're probably commenting on. You might want to just not necessarily try the inhaler itself. It might not be the right way to go. There might be other routes of administration that can help you quite a bit, especially, again, you have, and I just bought some of your new edibles. You have I think it was a 2-to-1, 2 CBD to 1 CBD, 1 THC edible, which I think is great.
Strawberry peach is absolutely delicious, and it has a lot more CBD than a normal edible. And it's the best part about ours is that it's a homogenized dose. So when it comes to being a lightweight with THC, cut that in half. It's still going to have the same amount in each piece there, but you're going to have a lot less of a psychoactive experience.
Great. Lynn asked a question. Can I get a copy of the slideshow you emailed to me? Recording of the event. I mentioned earlier, and I know you just came in late. As a follow-up to this, you'll get an email that'll have a link to the YouTube video of this. It'll also have the presentation, all the speaker notes. We'll have a copy of the Move chart that has the terpenes and the products, as well as a couple other discounts and things that are out there. So it's something to take a look at. So you will get that. It's there. There's a long anonymous comment here. It's just a comment. Let me read this for a second. The mention here that there is that strains can have more than one terpene. Is that correct, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. And using those terpenes at different moments to pinpoint effects. I think that's what you're getting out there, and I really like that you have the which strains to reach for. That Granddaddy Purp, the Velvet Glove. That's you taking ownership of your journey there. So thank you. As opposed to other secondary terpenes in the profile, this is an entourage effect there. So when we have a strain with a similar terpene at a different time of the day there, you've got different cannabinoids, flavonoids, and terpenes that are being concentrated at that moment. So it all depends on where you are in your cycle and how that entourage effect is going to be then relayed.
Right, that'd be cool. So Nick, let's talk about Move itself. I know we've talked a lot about the different properties, but really you have done a really good job. I think your founder came from the pharma industry, right?
Absolutely. AltMed, who previously before Move was bought by Verano, we came from the children's epileptic medication space. So that's what AltMed was originally founded to support. And we were able to put out a medication nationally that helped reduce children's seizures and manage them. So when it came to cannabis, that kind of stayed right in the same line. But we took that scientific thinking with us, having that heavy trials, most research that we possibly can, the best setup when it comes to indoor cultivation and scientific approach. That way that we have the best formulated product by the time it gets to the shelf. And when it comes down to it, we have everything from topicals to flower, but it's all grown from the best in class product that's indoor with terpenes brimming. So it all comes from that wonderful material.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've gone through your grow facility. Like I mentioned, it's been almost 4 or 5 years, but I do have to tell you, I was impressed. I've been through a number of grow facilities here in Florida, and I would rate yours as probably one of the top ones that are out there. You definitely know what you're doing, especially when it comes to mixing and paying attention to preserving the terpenes that are there. You used the term that I really like, and something we need to explain. You used a concept called encapsulated technology. Tell me a little bit about that, Nick.
The encapsulated technology is actually what we have our patented on. So this is a federal patent that's based on our research that we're really proud to be able to present, because this shows the serious nature that we put into our products. This is a water-soluble molecule that allows the THC to be bioavailable faster in your system. So it's able to get right in there and get straight to work.
That's what you're talking about right over here, this part that's right there. Right.
So, and when we have the cream, or we have the capsule, or we have the gel, we have it formulated into different products so that you have that same technology there. So so you can really pick your best.
Right. And it works very, very well. I mean, I'll compliment you. It works very well. Here's a list of all the different routes of administration and the various products that you have out there. It's very impressive, Nick.
They just keep getting better. Tomorrow they're putting out the caramels, which is going to be it's similar to the lozenge in that shape and size in the container there, but it's going to be that wonderful caramel that we all know and love. So it's just getting better and better.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And tell me about your premium flower. Is that right?
Yes, our reserve flower is really, really special, because we only put the top 20% of the crop into the jar, and there's selected genetics that we've already vetted before it's made it into the garden. So our reserve line is a shining example of what cannabis should be. Right. So I hope everybody gets to experience it.
Right. So also, let's talk about strain print. Let's talk about some of the things that you can find in strain print. This is an example of a Sour Jack strain and a modified grape number 5. Tell me a little bit about this. This is, people say, what strains are there? What is it good for? What's it help? You've helped solve that through an app, right?
Absolutely, and we were mentioning before the kind of understanding your cannabis journey through strain print. This is the fruits of that effort there. So so many people have been adding their experiences that we now have data that we can point to. Our Sour Jack is a wonderful sativa leaning hybrid strain that we know has citrus notes, diesel notes, and sweet candy notes. But we've seen that stress, depression, and anxiety have been affected by over 40% of patients that have consumed it. So that we know that a patient base that is experiencing stress, depression, and anxiety reaches for this more invigorating strain, something that's going to be more stimulating and energizing, like this Sour Jack. We know that we have data that supports that it's going to be more effective. Now, on the other side of the coin, that modified grapes there, which is a much more indica leaning strain, still a hybrid, but it's going to have that sweet, that grape, that skunky diesel smell. We know that people are going to be working on pain, on stress, anxiety. insomnia. This strain is a true knockout. That genetically modified organism, GMO, right there, is not a messing around strain.
Right.
But because we know it's so chock full of terpenes there, we can now to see the potential effects that were achieved by the patients. So
Sure.
it's a great system to work in.
Great. Yeah, no, that's something that I think that's really, really important. Let's talk about concentrates for a second. Really what you've done is instead of, so what are concentrates? Concentrate really takes the flour, it breaks it down into various forms, whether that's a shatter, wax, crumble, and so you can actually use it to be able to get the most out of the flour without necessarily having to smoke a joint. What people don't realize is that when you roll that joint and you take that 500-degree lighter to it, it burns off half of the cannabinoids, all the terpenes, and all the flavonoids. So you're taking a lot of the medical property out of cannabis when you smoke that joint. What's fascinating is even though you do that, cannabis is such a powerful medicine, it still gives tremendous relief to a lot of patients who do that. We see that quite a bit. So concentrates are a way of being able to get the most out of the flour, but you can maintain the terpene profiles, you can maintain the cannabinoids by being able to use a vape pen or flour vaporizer. I know, Deborah, you mentioned something about, about vape pens that you recommend are dry herb vaporizers. And the answer is I recommend that as well. If you go back if you look at Marijuana Aware, that website, marijuanaaware.com, and you go to the follow-ups, you'll see there's a routes of administration webinar that we did. And in there, we do talk quite a bit about different vaporizers, dry herb concentrates. You may want to take a look at that as a reference that's out there. You can download the presentation as well to see that. But I totally agree with that. The concentrates are really great to be able to help people get the most out of the flour without necessarily burning away the good stuff, right, Nick?
The concentrates are a pure macrodose, and it's the pure expression of the plant that's now been brought into that smaller moment there. So there's a couple different versions of extracts down at the bottom of the page there. There's distillate, there's Rick Simpson oil, there's shatter, which is a plastic-like consistency that can actually break off. We have our crumble, which is a little bit more malleable and easy to use. Our rosin, which is going to be the most flavorful and most true to form of the extracts. And then our distillate, which is just so easy to dose and use in other products and you can also eat it orally because it's already activated. But choosing these different concentrates is going to choose your macrodose experience because there's so many terpenes in there.
Right. And again, the chart has all the terpene profiles that you'll see out there for the various move products that are there. Vapes, you do a great job. You have a wide range of vapes and also the quality as well as the variety. Tell us a little bit about your vapes.
Vapes are just getting better. We actually just put out our hydrocarbon extract, our live resin vaporizers last week. So we actually have a new product on the shelf when it comes to vaporizing. It's the same plant, but it's a different extraction method. And we're using a mix of hydrocarbons to be able to have a better terpene profile in the cartridge for you. So there's the 510 threads, which are screw onto the top of traditional batteries. Those are our Pure and Plus cartridges. We have our Dart Pod, which goes into a proprietary cartridge system. And then we have our disposables, which are really easy and discreet. It's a great way to sample a strain. And then I think they put in the flower cups there too. And the nice thing about the flower cups is that if you ever run out on your recommendation, you ever run out of flower and you still have inhalation available, you can get flower cups and you will still have access to flower. So if you run out of your 2.5 ounces and you still want to be able to purchase flower, come check out the Move flower cups and we'll be able to get it to you.
Right, that's out there. I do want to also point out, here's an example of the different strains that are advertised inside your dispensary. Here's the terpenes and the effect. And I want to answer a question that Honey asked a question. Do you see dispensaries moving towards a system of rating their products by terpenes instead of strains? The strain names don't transfer over across dispensaries, but the terpene levels do. The answer is absolutely. Right now, the whole industry is moving away from sativa and indica. In fact, I read a couple articles over the last couple of weeks about how indica and sativa are dead. What they're all moving towards what they call cultivars. What are cultivars? Cultivars are definitions of the cannabinoids, and more importantly, the terpenes that you're finding inside the product to give a particular effect. We're kind of right on the cusp of that transfer between indica, sativa over to cultivars. I would say you're like a lot of your premium collection, a lot of premium products you're talking about, Nick, really focus on a lot of the cultivars that are being put in that's out there.
The Verano Reserve flower, we definitely have a great example of cannabis, and when you're looking at the different strains and cultivars there's always an option. It's great, it really is.
Right. So the answer is we're kind of heading over. I kind of liken it to the fact that we hear a lot about electric cars. We all have gas engine cars, but we're right on the cusp of that transfer between the gas engine and the electric engine. Probably 10 years from now, it'll be as hard to find a gas-powered car as it will be an electric power, trying to find an electric-powered car today. But we're right on that cusp, and that's what we're seeing in the industry about cultivars. And really, I believe within 5 to 10 years, there'll be a much more concentration or much more packaging that makes the terpene profiles more predominant. What's your thoughts, Nick?
As research continues there, it's just going to keep coming more accessible. And when we understand what our terpene profile is, and we know that it's the pinene and the limonene that work best for me, having that conversation elsewhere because they've already been able to identify it makes it that much easier to be effective with your medication.
But here's a couple of the again, the terpenes that are found and this information comes out of strain print that you find in the different vapes that are there. Here's a couple others. You want to comment on these?
Yeah, these are great here. That Canasu right there is our 1-to-1 vape product there. So that's direct 1 CBD to 1 THC there. And it's got a blend of myrcene, caryophyllene, pinene, and limonene. So it's very calming, very relaxing. And more importantly, we've actually have data that shows that it relieves pain and stress. So that goes right back to that strain print that we were looking at earlier. So now if we want to get something that's going to make us a little less irritable, maybe let's go for the OG Kush there. And the nice thing about the OG Kush is that that's a botanical terpene. So that's going to be the same every single time we pick it up, that we know that flavor is going to be the same. So it's really, there's a time and a place for all types of terpenes.
Right. A couple here, a couple last ones were good. Black Mamba is one of my favorites, but again, I'll let you walk through these.
I haven't had a chance to get the Black Mamba in a while, but that is a classic right there, right in the same line as the OG Kush there. But it's that caryophyllene, that mango place, that wonderful lemon and lavender there. But the blueberry is a recipe for sleep for me. This is probably one of the best PM pens that cartridges that I've come across here. It's got that caryophyllene, myrcene, humulene, and limonene. But more importantly, it is a recipe for sleep. Right. So I really appreciate the blueberry pens.
Right. So we have a question. Maybe you can help answer that. It says, what is there a difference between GMO and non-GMO marijuana? You want to comment on that?
Yes, that was my fault earlier for not being clear that GMO is a strain name. So a genetic name is what I was referring to when I said GMO. There might be genetically modified organisms out there in the world when it comes to cannabis, but we grow natural organisms. There's no GMO going on in there.
Right. It's important to point out.
Yeah.
There was one question that came in. I will get it in a minute. There you go. So we have you've already put this slide out of date. You have 47 locations, and I think you just opened up the 48th. Is it today?
We got another one in there just tomorrow. Well, it was a soft opening on Monday, but we have the official opening tomorrow. No, excuse me, it was today. It was this morning. Yes. So Winter Haven is now open. So if anybody's in the area, please do stop by. There's now 48 locations and another 40 to come over the year. So there's a lot of growth on the horizon.
Yeah, move will be close. We're looking forward to your Claremont location. Just thought I'd throw that in as one comment that did come in that I did see. Michelle was asking a question of, I have anxiety and I also get migraines. Smoke burns my throat. What's best for migraines? I'm not going to really jump into that right now, but I will mention, Michelle, if you go to our website, marijuanaaware.com, go to the follow-up page. We did a migraines webinar last week, and you might find that very, very helpful to not only understand how cannabis works for it, but what strains to use. I'd recommend taking a look at that, either the presentation or the video itself. I think that'll help you quite a bit. But going back to what you're doing, you mentioned you're opening up 40 more locations in the next year.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why we needed that new grow facility there in Palatka, and it's an agricultural community. So I'm really glad that we can be engaging there. It's just going to keep, bringing the good stuff.
Right, right. There you go. Okay, Nathaniel, Natalie asked a question. My understanding is that Move just opened in Ocala. Is that correct?
It is, yes. We're right over there on Southwest College Road, right next to Lumber Liquidators. It's like I said, a really big store. There's plenty of room to be comfortable and explore cannabis in there. The manager's name is Carrie. She's a wonderful woman. Please go see the team over there. Really, really great opportunity.
Yeah, and as we do these webinars, you're opening up locations, so I don't have that slide is very hard to keep up to date. So Nick, next one we do, we'll get to what's up there. But we talked earlier about how do we get in touch with you? You mentioned phone, we mentioned email, and also this is a live chat. This is where you can set up a session with the consultation. Let me go to this slide here. Might be easier. This is where you get the one-on-one consultation. You want to take us through that?
Yep, and it's movefl.com. That is the gateway here. But you're able to have a one-on-one moment with our patient care team to go over any cannabis questions you could possibly imagine. They are well versed with the product suite, not only at Move, but it's cannabis in general. So please use this as a sounding board. Please use it as a resource. That's why we're here at Move, is about education first. And that's why I love my job so much. We have the opportunity to just talk and learn together, because I know what works for me, but when I find out what helps somebody else, that way we can share it. So that all starts in places like consultations there. And really, thank you so much for being a part of that.
Right. Now, what are your options? Okay, you're looking at medical cannabis, or you're looking at cannabis in general. If you're looking at products that have THC and also CBD, that's where you need a card. And you can get a card, and we'll talk about where you can get a card and the products in just a moment. But that's where that direction heads. If you're looking at just using hemp-derived CBD products, my note is, and just be very careful, look at the COA, the Certificate of Analysis. There is a lot of, here in Florida, Nikki Fried has done a great job, but she deserves a lot of credit for really cleaning up the CBD market and really providing products that have COAs, but there still is different quality issues. So really, the question is, where do you find a quality product? And I'm going to direct you to a site that actually helps you be able to find that in just a moment. But also, a lot of physicians, when they're looking at making recommendations for what you should do, recommend people using a full spectrum CBD product to not only maximize the entourage effect, but also to be able to help with the dosing in case it gets out, in case you get that anxiety or negative effects from using cannabis. You can actually moderate that, take that right back down within 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to put this slide up very quickly. If you're looking for where you're going to get medical cannabis, I would recommend going to Move. And so movefl.com is the website. Is that right, Nick?
Yes, sir. You got it.
Great. And if you're looking for getting your card, I recommend that you go to mmtcfl.com. Now, MMTC, the reason I recommend them is MMTC is one of the few clinics that also helps not only put you in the registry, but also has dosing support. So after you get your card, figuring out how to dose, what to do, where to go next, they actually have a call center that really helps with that. And I think they're the only ones in Florida that have that. And really, dosing is really the key to making cannabis work. And I like the fact their patient care is really premium and really the best in the industry. But also, we put up a site. I put up a site. They should say the team and I put up a site on My Botanical Wellness. And the reason for that is because people kept asking, where do I find a quality CBD product? I know Move, you have products, but a lot of yours are especially focused on the THC side of it. So where do you fight, instead of going to the gas station, where do you get a quality CBD, hemp-based CBD product? And that's where we put this site together, My Botanical Wellness. Physicians have looked at the different products and made recommendations on the products that are in there. So all three of those are there. And naturally, there's a discount code for MMTC and My Botanical Wellness. And I think, Nick, you have a whole bunch of discounts at Move. Is that correct?
Yeah, at your doctor's office, you're going to get your physician referral card, which gets you 25% off the first visit, 75 off 150, and then a buy one, get one, which is really awesome. But we often have sales that are going on through the week. So most importantly, every Wednesday is our 30% off for veterans. So thank you very much for your service, but please do also take advantage of that discount. And then on Sundays, we have 10% off for seniors. So there's definitely always a way to get a discount. The best way to stay up to date with that is getting on our email list available at movefl.com.
Right. Last question that came in, I got it a couple places. Honey, as well as Natalie asked us, are the Move Grow sites available for tours? Are they? I don't think they are they?
I wish I could take everybody into the tours there. Unfortunately, it's a microbial issue. When you have high traffic going into these sterile environments there's a chance for microbes of either fungus or any other kind of basically what we don't want in the marijuana. So when we allow lots of other people to visit, unfortunately, our medication can suffer. So really, the best way to view it is via our social media profiles. And then when we put out videos online, we do a lot of product highlights. But hopefully soon we'll have a way to give a firsthand look inside there and get everybody a view.
Yeah, I would basically liken that to, I know that when I went through the grow facilities, the ones I've been to, it's like you get dressed like you're going to the moon, you're launching a moon rocket, you get the head. I used to work in Silicon Valley, and when we went into the silicone facilities, we had to put on these suits to basically keep things that are there. These are because of quality control, because of the contaminants and things that they're guarding against. This isn't like a winery. This is an area where you're really trying to control the environment to get that quality product that's out there. So I don't think you're trying to, I think if you could give a tour, you would, but the way this process works, it's not conducive to tours. Is that safe to say?
The best part about the facility down at our grow operations is around every single corner that I went, somebody was scrubbing the floor with a smile on their face. And when I tell you this cleaning team was dedicated, I can't tell you how grateful I was, because they were stopping that first line of defense before I even made it into the room. And it's a lot of dedication all the way down the line, from the med tenders to the cleaning crew over at the grow facility. So thank you to everybody on my team there. You're on there.
Well, listen, Nick, we have spent the last hour and 15 minutes talking about terpenes. And first of all, I want to thank everybody for hanging in there and going through this webinar. We really appreciate it. We're here for you, and hopefully we answered your questions and enlightened you somewhat on terpenes themselves. Nick, you have any closing comments?
Terpenes are an amazing opportunity to direct your care when it comes to cannabis. Like we said earlier, they are the driving force of the entourage effect and the cannabis experience. So my assignment, or my hope for everybody, is to understand what their terpene profile is. And no matter where you are on your cannabis journey, whether it's starting today or you've been in this for 20 years, you have an opportunity to ask what the potential effects of these terpenes are, and then what you're looking to accomplish with your cannabis use. So having that conversation with the med tender, say, hey, I'm looking for something that's anti-anxiety, sleep promoting. Give them that best direction so that they can give you the best cannabis behind that. You're going to be able to use less of it, be more effective with it, and have a better experience overall.
Right, right. Well, Nick, thank you very much, and I want to thank Move for the sponsorship for this webinar, and thank you personally for the insight and comments that are here. I really do appreciate that. I want to thank a couple of other people that do a great job in the background. You've seen Leah and Lee. They are the moderators, and they are the unsung heroes of this, because without them, this wouldn't happen smoothly. And Lee and Leah, thank you very much. I do want to mention that this is the last webinar in the spring series. We will start again, and on August 24th, we'll have our next webinar that will be coming out. We'll be announcing the schedule probably within the next week, and we're kind of excited about what's going on next quarter. We've lined up some interesting topics. We'll be talking about athletics. We'll be talking about a number of different things that are out there that really affect the cannabis world. So please stay tuned. And again, thank you, everyone. Without you, this wouldn't happen. And thanks, everyone, for attending tonight. Please have a safe 4th of July weekend. And everyone, stay safe in general. We really hope that this has helped you get your life back. Have a good day, and more importantly, have a good evening, and we look to seeing you again on August 24th. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.